Hey guys, Lord Exas here, bringing you something a little bit unusual, and yes, I am aware that is what I have said probably the past 5 to 7 actual SAO HR videos I have uploaded. That said, what I wanted to talk about today is just with the release of Fatal Bullet being in just a few weeks here, is really what I actually like about these games. Like, they're definitely what I've built my small channel on. And from what I have made, I am relatively proud of what I have made, love it or hate it. It's nothing big, it's nothing massive. It's just a small community where I can talk to people and just talk about things I like, and that's all that really matters. That said, without getting too sentimental bullcrap here, I'm not gonna lie, I don't think I'm as hyped for Fatal Bullet as a lot of people. As someone who's played all of the games in the franchise, with the only one I haven't actually completed being Excel World versus Sword Art Online, mainly because I'm not a big fan of that and Lost Songs gameplay, I don't know what to expect. Like, I take one look at Fatal Bullet, and as much as it looks fun with a lot of its mechanics, and I am excited for it, I'm definitely going to play it and play through it, considering these games run on an alternate timeline and all that jazz. So it's likely going to be important. I am personally just hoping that it's just kind of, I don't want to say there, that feels very bad representation, but I'm hoping it isn't signifying, especially with the Chains Up team to Dimps, I'm hoping it's not the end of the Hollow series. Because, before I get too far off sidetracked, like I was saying, I started with the first one, Hollow Fragment, and not Re-Hollow Fragment on the PS4. It was the original Vita one that I started with, that has more of Realization's gameplay just kind of dumped down. And looking at it from my perspective, Realization is more of Fragment's gameplay, but vastly improved. With the first one having a more slow-paced, auto-attacking Xenoblade Chronicles style, if that makes sense. That said, that one was incredibly ill-balanced. I have a whole separate video on balancing with its own set of flaws. But, I've always liked the idea that Realization brought. It's got this sense of flow to it with regular attacks that can be chained in and out of with your sword skills, which are definitely your bread and butter. And it's all a matter of controlling combat via SP and knowing enemy patterns and all of that. It's a memorization and reaction process that just is really cool. I mean, if they had another Hollow title and did bosses a bit better, you could have these large-scale attacks where maybe you might actually fail your first time and then gotta memorize it and learn how to properly react like an actual MMO boss. That said, these aren't MMOs, and I don't expect them to be. But it would be cool to have some sort of console MMO in the style of these games, because they are trying to emulate it very hard, though your branding and commercials and advertising would have to be a lot better. And while I love Sword Art Online, I will say this game's, and it's the game series' biggest flaw is being Sword Art Online. Don't take that wrong, because I love this series. It's more so, it's a very polarizing thing. You love it or you hate it, and a lot of people recognize that. For as good as this gameplay is, there's parts of this game that feel like a visual novel, because even if you're on a second playthrough and just kind of skipping, certain skips can take more than 5 minutes while holding the fast forward button, which is admittedly a little bit ridiculous. Though, what I am hoping for in Fatal Bullet is, due to its art style and graphical presentation, it looks like Lost Song to me. And I'm hoping it doesn't carry over some of the flaws that Lost Song has. And to be fair, unlike a lot of people, I have been keeping myself a little bit in the dark when it comes to Fatal Bullet. I want to go in with no real expectations, and not in a bad way. Like, I don't want to, I've been purposely avoiding anything other than, like, certain character customizations and whatnot. because I want to have that kind of complete, fresh experience of not having any idea how the game is going to play and figuring it out. Because from the few trailers I have watched, it looks like it's keeping RPG-style stuff, but with guns, which might make enemies feel a little bit like bullet sponges. Keeping in mind, I am not a very big shooter game person, like, at all. I mean, I think the most I can really claim to have played that can fall under the shooter category an extensive amount of is the Uncharted series. And even then, that's more of an adventure-style thing, and that's why I played them, because they have a more of a balance on platforming and shooting and adventure and visual storytelling, rather than just see bad guy, fill it with lead. Not to discredit any FPS people who may or may not watch this channel. That said, I'm hoping they don't feel too spongy. It looks like there's a lot of mechanics with the grappling hook and the weird knee slide thing that's totally not out of whatever that title is I'm brain farting on. That looks like it will be fast-paced and involved, but my biggest issue with that is that if that's the case, bosses are going to need to be engaging, because if they end up just being these few patterns that the previous games have kind of done, and while I will say Fragment and Realization especially had some pretty intricate bosses in terms of pattern, Lost Song did not. They kind of, I'll get back to that in a minute. But if the bosses and enemies just kind of sit there while you go around them and shoot them, I don't know how I'm going to feel about that. Like, keeping in mind one of my favorite games of all time plays exactly like that, being Mega Man Legends, where you kind of strafe around an enemy until it dies. But most of those bosses are designed in such a way where they have purposeful patterns to interrupt that flow to make sure you cannot continuously strafe around them and just shoot them till they die. That said, my biggest worry is that it will feel like Lost Song. Like, when Lost Song first came out, I liked it. However, it has aged like milk for me. I think the visuals are still nice. However, sorry, I've got a little bit of a cold, and it's like 3 in the morning when I'm recording this. Anyway, the biggest problem I have with Lost Song is... I can't say it. Mainly it's progression. You don't really feel any progression. Your level kind of just feels like it's there to indicate you can get smacked a little bit harder. And especially with its skills and whatnot, you could cheese the game by picking a character that was better in the terms of magic. So even Asuna, which is basically available from start, and just destroy everything with magic. Which they did try to rectify in Excel World versus Lost Song and put emphasis on the SAO characters having magic and the Excel World characters using more physical attacks. However, it didn't really feel like it made too much of a difference. As much as the flight, I will compliment the flight gameplay. If they did change it up a little bit, so skills will work differently in air and via the ground. But the flight is definitely the best thing those games have going for them, and by itself, it doesn't offer too much. So, yeah. One thing I'm hoping with Fatal Bullet is that it gives me a bit of variety in mission types, but considering I've already seen how they're handling the multiplayer, I'm not putting my hopes too high. A good example of this is, so from what I've heard, don't quote me on this, again, I haven't been doing a ton of research, so this video is, again, more of a hopes than an actual fact thing. From what I've heard, they have it more of a mission-styled multiplayer, where you have a select number of missions you can do, and you do them. Similar to how Lost Song handled it with its mission quest, and that Lost Song, I feel, had decent multiplayer, but it was still kind of bland. And here's where I'm going to bring reference to Hollow Fragment again. I feel if they were to get a multiplayer right, it would have to be kind of a mix, if they were going to do with what they had, of Hollow Fragment and Hollow Realization. The way Realization's multiplayer works is it ditches you into the lobby, you make a party, and you go out into the field and just kind of do whatever. Especially focusing on any event fragments and different things that may have spawned, which are these green and red areas for anyone who's kind of uninformed. However, the biggest problem is they spawn at random, and there are certain ways you can kind of force other ones to spawn, but they don't always do that. Fragment had a system where you choose what one you want to spawn, and it spawns right when you get to that map, and you go there. What would be the best mix is having a mix of the random spawns, but still keeping some sort of mission select to guarantee a certain one is there. A good example is a quest I farmed quite a bit to get some Luxorian ore back before that was an easy feat to do. My buddy and I that I play online with, Crazy Lemon Stand quite often, we just were having the most difficult time actually getting the quest to spawn. So I can get why having designated multiplayer missions would definitely be an upside compared to that, but it takes away at the same time a level of the amount of just goofing off with friends that makes games like this so much fun. But I digress on that mark. So don't take this as a negative giant thing towards Fatal Bullet, because again, I am looking forward to it. I just have some concerns that I hope don't fall on their face, because the character customization looks nice. The fact that you can align certain skill stats at the beginning is very interesting. And I'm excited to see how exactly they handle everything, because I'm loving the way the sliding looks and the grappling hook thing. And the AI character looks pretty interesting too. But now back to something else. I am hoping, like I said, that that's not the end of the Hollow series. Because these in particular games, specifically Realization, which, if you couldn't tell, is my favorite of the group, its gameplay is really what keeps me here. Yeah, again, like I've said several times already, I am a Sword Art Online fan. But Sword Art Online is not what's keeping me playing these games. It's the gameplay. When you start the game, you have to be very, very careful of managing your SP and knowing how to switch properly, parry, perfect guard, SSC, which is Sword Skill Connect, and multiple other things, and how to properly use and handle your buffs. It's really a sense of, and before I stutter like an idiot, unlike Lost Song, there is a very, very clear sense of progression with this until you inevitably get to the Singularity Dungeon, and then all of that goes out the window. But that satisfaction of pulling off those large SSCs and properly dodging once that was implemented, in between guarding, parrying, switching, everything, was just so satisfying. And it's one of the most satisfying games I've played combat-wise in a while. Like, the only thing I can really think of that I absolutely adore getting these massive chains off more than this is probably Kingdom Hearts 2. But it makes me hope that, once again, because I have been repeating myself a lot this video, I apologize, it's pretty late at night, I just hope it's not the end of the Hollow series, because I find it the most enjoyable. So basically, I'm hoping that, not really counting Excel World vs. Lost Song as a full title, because that was literally kind of just using the same engine with some new character models and slightly changed areas with a few new ones. That doesn't take nearly as long to make. Like, Realization was in production for about 2.5 years. So I'm hoping, considering this game came out in 2016, it is now 2018, after Fatal Bullet comes out, maybe not, I doubt it would be something they announce at E3, but I'm hoping for another Hollow title that definitely makes improvements on what Realization already improved upon from Fragment. That said, for the love of all that is holy, do not. The one thing that kills these games, which is my biggest complaint with Hollow Fragment as well as Excel World versus Sword Art Online, is sword skill cooldowns. What makes this gameplay so enjoyable is that SP management and learning how to control the flow of battle with it. But when you add cooldowns to sword skills that last way longer than they should, granted they shouldn't be there at all, it takes away that flow. Imagine me doing Final Revolution like that, and then having to wait a good 30 seconds before I can use it. With the way some of them are designed, you don't have enough... You could use all of your skills in between attacks that do next to no damage and have to sit there and wait. And that's not fun. That is not fun. That's being a little bit too MMO-y in a section that doesn't need to be MMO-y. But I digress. Basically, I will be making another video later, at least I'm hoping to, that has a more in-depth of what I want in another Holo title, because this video isn't for that. But I've expressed my concerns and hopes. Definitely, I hope they fix something with the multiplayer. Don't pull an Excel World versus Lost Song and do like a buttload of DLC out the gate. No one wants that. Like, Realization's DLC was definitely done right, where it came out periodically over the next year and kept people invested. And that was definitely good. Though I will say, next time around, their team needs to have a lot more communication with the fan base. Because I actively have a video where I was concerned that they were going to cancel the Western DLC, because that is exactly what they came off sounding like, and it freaked a lot of people out. That said, though, I've mumbled on like an idiot for long enough, but, you know, that's just, I guess, how I work my channel. I don't script these. Woo. Anyway, but yeah, so definitely leave some of your own thoughts and wants in the comments. Like, what do you want for Fatal Bullet? What do you want another Holo title? What are your opinions on the Lost Song style games and the flight mechanics? Do you like the flight mechanics? Do you think they were terrible? But all that said, as I always say, keep it real and keep it weird. Exas is out, guys.